The Girl in the Box, the disturbing true story of Colleen Stan. One of the most disturbing true stories that is relatively lesser known but horrifying is that of Colleen Stan, also known as the Girl in the Box. In 1977, 20-year-old Colleen was hitchhiking from her home in Oregon to a friend's birthday party in Northern California when she made a decision that would lead to one of the most harrowing and disturbing kidnapping cases in American history. Colleen had hitched rides before and felt confident in her ability to sense danger. When a young couple with a baby in the back seat pulled over to offer her a ride, Colleen thought it was safe. The couple, Cameron and Janice Hooker, seemed ordinary, and the presence of the baby reassured her. But shortly after getting in the car, Colleen realized she had made a grave mistake. After driving for a while, Cameron Hooker pulled the car over in a remote area and held a knife to Colleen's throat. He and his wife Janice bound her and forced a homemade wooden box over her head that was designed to muffle sounds and disorient her. Colleen was now trapped in the beginning of what would become 7 years of unspeakable horror. The Hookers took Colleen to their home, where Cameron, a sadistic and controlling man, began torturing her both physically and psychologically. He kept her locked in a coffin-like wooden box under the couple's bed for up to 23 hours a day. The box was soundproof, allowing Cameron to carry out his cruelty in secret. It was so small that Colleen could barely move, and the isolation caused her physical pain and severe mental distress. Cameron told Colleen that he was a part of a powerful organization called the Company, a mysterious group that monitored her every move. He convinced her that if she ever tried to escape, the Company would kill her and her family. Terrified, Colleen complied with Cameron's demands and lived in constant fear of this fictitious organization. Cameron's psychological manipulation was so effective that Colleen didn't attempt to escape, despite the opportunities that arose. For several years, Colleen lived in the box under the bed. She was only allowed out to eat, use the bathroom, or to be tortured and sexually abused by Cameron. Shockingly, Janice, his wife, was complicit in the abuse, agreeing to it as part of a twisted deal. Janice allowed Cameron to have a slave as long as he promised not to abuse her. But the horror didn't stop there. After several years of captivity, Cameron allowed Colleen to walk freely around the house and even permitted her to visit her family under strict rules. He reinforced his control by reminding her of the Company's constant surveillance, and unbelievably, Colleen didn't tell her family what was happening. During one of these visits, she even took photos with her family, smiling and pretending everything was fine, all while she knew she had to return to her captor's home. What's perhaps most chilling is that her family believed she had joined a cult due to her strange behavior and didn't push her for details about her life. The psychological control that Cameron had over her was so powerful that she didn't seek help, despite the freedom during these visits. Eventually, Janice began to feel threatened by Colleen's presence and Cameron's increasing obsession with her. She confessed everything to Colleen, including the fact that the Company was a lie. Armed with this knowledge, Colleen began to think about escape, but still hesitated, fearing for her life and the lives of her family members. It wasn't until Janice made a final confession to the police that Colleen was freed in 1984. In a twist that still baffles many, Janice turned Cameron in, hoping to save herself from prosecution. She cooperated with investigators, revealing the full extent of the abuse and torture that Colleen had endured for 7 years. Cameron Hooker was arrested and during the trial was described as a sexual sadist with a deep desire to control and dominate. He was convicted of kidnapping, sexual assault, and multiple other charges, and sentenced to 104 years in prison. Colleen Stan's story remains one of the most horrifying cases of prolonged captivity and psychological abuse. Despite the 7 years of torture, she somehow survived and eventually regained her life, though the scars, both physical and emotional, would never fully heal. What makes this story particularly disturbing is not only the unimaginable conditions Colleen was forced to endure, but also the extent of Cameron's manipulation, which kept her compliant and silent for so long. The fact that Colleen was able to visit her family and still return to her captor's home shows the sheer power of psychological abuse and control. Today, Colleen Stan has shared her story in interviews and a memoir, hoping to help others understand the dynamics of psychological abuse and captivity. Her resilience is extraordinary, but the horrifying ordeal she went through remains one of the darkest and most disturbing true stories in modern history.